Hello everyone, welcome to our class, International Business and Trade. I am your instructor, Sonia Elvira Guillermo-Payay. Allow me to present to you an overview of international business and trade. So first, let us define international trade, discuss its importance, and of course, learn the reason why nations actually trade. So first, what is international trade? When we speak of international trade, we're talking about the partnership among different governments that involves the process of buying and selling of goods and services among countries to satisfy the needs and wants of man. So the pure theory of international trade tends to answer two basic questions relating to international trade and factor movements. Basically, when we say international trade, it attempts to answer the following. What are these? First, why do countries trade with each other? Another is that why should there be a movement or movements of capital and labor between countries? And then what is the benefit of specialization of products? Is there a benefit? And international trade is basically the application of both macro and microeconomics. Thus, international trade is not just pure economic theory, but also applied economics. So it is concerned with theories regarding the balance of payments, effects of international trade to employment and income of the countries, and fixing rate. Okay, next. So why is it important to study international trade? First, when we speak of international trade, it is important because it expands the mental outlook of people. So basically, when you say international trade, it enables actually the people to think beyond the narrow confines of nationalism. It makes us realize that national prosperity is not sustainable in a world surrounded by poor countries or economies. The study emphasizes the harmony or complementary between the different national economies. It also highlights the futility of autarky. When you say autarky, it's a political term for self-sufficient. So it helps us realize the significant role of foreign capital and labor in the development of a country. So the developed countries are result of productive activities of foreign capital and labor. So please remember that. Therefore, if nations should exist and prosper, they should ask in the spirit of mutual help. So it should be realized that there is a close relationship between the growth of international trade and the growth of the economies who are part of this international trade. And in 1990, there is actually a decrease in international trade of merchandise. Why? Because of recessionary trend in the global economy. Okay, another importance of studying international trade is that it helps to develop international outlook. So the study of international trade basically helps the statesmen and economists to enlarge their international outlook for resolving several problems of the economy, like for example, poverty, okay, misery, or low standard of living, of course, besides unemployment. So the study shows us that nations cannot adopt conflicting economies and policies and usefulness of the beggar my neighbor policy. Okay. So another importance of international trade is that it emphasizes the need of international cooperation. So several problems in the world which cannot be solved single-handedly can easily be solved through international economic cooperation. So that's the reason why it is important to study international trade, because another reason is that it strongly supports the view of increasing economic cooperation in the global arena. Okay. um, which will go a long way in increasing prosperity of nations involved in it. It tells us that free trade is the best guarantee against outbreak of global war. And finally, one of the reasons why it's important to study international trade is that it aids in the study of a specific problem or specific problems. So any problem can be solved by international trade in the viewpoint of economics and not politics, right? So why do nations then trade? Let's try to see the reasons or the factors for international trade. Number one factor is regional differences. So countries in the world differ in terms of natural resources or endowments. Okay, when we speak of that endowments, we're talking about the factors of production. Okay, what else? Climatic conditions, mineral resources, and capital resources. So all these differences lead to situation wherein some countries can produce some goods and services more efficiently. Okay, like for example, in Japan, they are efficient in producing appliances. In Malaysia, they're most efficient in producing palm oil. In Brazil, they're known for their coffee, and in Thailand, they're also known for their rice. Okay, so another factor of international trade is international immobility of factors. So, due to nationalism of people in a nation, immobility of factors of production is present. When we speak of immobility of factors, this is when the skills, the talents, or ideas of individuals are being confined in an economy wherein the said traits are not being fully utilized. So, immobility due to distances and even costs entailed in transporting the factor of production. So another factor is the different monetary system. Okay, so independent monetary systems give rise to the need of exchanging one country's currency into others at an agreed ratio. So the purchase and the sale of foreign currency is done in the forex, and the agreed ratio is known as your foreign exchange rate. So if a currency is not freely convertible, it would hinder international transactions. So importers cannot import their goods and exporters cannot export their goods. So for example, gold standards, where a country's currency has a value directly linked to gold. So in gold standard, economies agree that they can convert their money in fixed amount of gold. But due to the abandonment of gold standards, the different economies now have their different monetary and credit policies. So it created problems in terms of foreign exchange. So, with the presence of challenges brought about by problems in foreign exchange, importers and exporters tend to buy inferior goods and also high-priced goods. So, that is, or this is one of the factors of international trade, different monetary system. Next, controls and regulations. So the existence of political boundaries carries with it controls and regulations of international trade and payments in forms of custom duties, maybe quotas, exchange controls, foreign trade monopolies, and other measures, of control known as your administrative protectionism. So if there is high tariff, okay, perhaps it would result to low supply. If supply is low, we know it so well, and if demand is constant, the price in the international market will tend to increase. Okay, next, another factor is greater geographical distances and transport cost. So international trade exists due to existence of greater geographical distances between countries and the consequent increase in transportation cost. So goods may be transported with different modes of transportation, such as your sea, yeah, air, and land over long distances. So transport in long distances will entail higher packaging, insurance, banking facilities, and of course, freight charges. So transport cost is very important input in the international trade. Okay, next, another factor for international trade is trade between distinct entities. So when we speak of this factor, international trade is carried on between nations who have distinct political identities and distinct linguistic and cultural identities. So international trade would involve an exchange of goods between different people. It's more of like us and them, Filipinos and other nationalities. Okay. Next, another factor is the the problems of balance of payment disequilibrium. So when we speak of your balance of payment, this is actually a statement of all transactions made between entities in one country and the rest of the world. So when you say current account, we're talking about the transactions in goods and services. Capital account, on the other hand, is the transaction in financial instruments done by central bank reserves. This equilibrium talks about the surplus of demand, okay, or supply in export or import transactions. So what are temporary in terms of these factor? We're talking about seasonal fluctuations such as typhoon that may affect crops. And then fundamental would talk about, okay, or it's actually the cause of long-run deficit, the changes in consumer taste, or excessive capital outflows. And structural talks about the changes in methods of production or technology that leads to changes in cost, quality, and of course, price of output. Okay. And then another factor for international trade is the different markets and goods. Okay, so for example, here in the Philippines, if you notice, drivers would actually stay on the left side. Diba? The steering wheel can be found at the left side of a car. But if you go to the US or in Hong Kong, people drive, okay, at the right side of the car. So if Philippines will manufacture cars, the type of car they will be producing will be dependent on the consumer. If they're producing for the Philippines, then they have to uh, create the steering wheel at the left side of the car. But if they are trying to produce a car for international uh, customers such as the US, then they will put the steering wheel at the right side of the car. Okay, so I will end first my discussion here. I will upload another discussion for you to review later on.